Al is a hero to me because Al was doing this back when I was a kid, and I would hear the ads on the radio for these bands and places they were playing, but I wasn't old enough to get in. And I met Al later on, and I got to play with him, and we became really good friends. And he's a wonderful guy. You know, he makes music, and he's not into drama or into any of the crap, ordinary life crap. He just wants to make music and be happy. And he's a wonderful guy. I'm really glad he's my friend.
First paying gig was at a place called Joseph's 88 Club. And it was me, my brother Leroy, who played rhythm guitar, and a guy named Roy Brennan, who played rhythm and lead. We had Tim McLeese on shoebox, and we played in the front window, and we did about 4 songs. They had a set of drums set up. There was a bass drum and a cymbal. That was their set of drums. But we managed to get by, and that was the start of, I think it was probably a couple of years before I got serious with it, but it was sure a lot of fun learning.
Was that first one a paying gig?
Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, I think we got like $2 a piece.
What year?
That was 57.
There you go.
1957. Tell you a lot about that year.
Well, go ahead. Tell me about the being in a band in the 50s and 60s.
Well, back in those days, they didn't have liquor by the drink in Iowa. You had to bring your old bottle in, and you had to have it in a bag, set it under your table, and then you had to order setups, which was Coke and ice and whichever you choose to mix your beverage with. And we played at a place called the 1101 Club in Marion, and there was 3 of us. We didn't have a bass. Our drummer stood up. Kenny Thompson played guitar, and I played guitar, and we got $10 a week. We played 2 nights, and we got $10 a night. Nah, we got $10 a week. And a lot of people was, giving us a little alcohol if we wanted some. So we were doing all right, considering one guy in the band wasn't 21 yet, and you had to be 21 to play in the bar in Marion. Did that for a while, but then on the weekends, we played big ballrooms, and you had to have 5 guys. And therefore, I met Stephen Miller, who was playing accordion at Boddicker's, and we knew he could play piano, so we got him playing piano with us. About an old Wurlitzer. Now this piano, let me tell you, if it was out of tune, you were screwed. Unless you had a pair of pliers, a soldering gun, and some solder, and a file. Because if it was sharp, you had to file the solder ball on the end, and if it was flat, you had to put solder on it. And it took a while to get tuned. And it took Steve like 35 seconds to get it out of tune. That was pretty good days. We played about every little bar around here. And then there was a lot of other little bands that had been doing country, And I think this is where the transition to country rock actually came from, because these hillbillies, they knew all these hillbilly songs, but they didn't like the hillbilly guitar that was being played in them. So they started playing this rock and roll guitar and these hillbilly songs.
When I've heard you play, I think it sounds a lot like you remind me of what they call these days Americana. You know, there's country in it, but it's more of a rocking country, you know.
I think that's what I try to do, actually. For one thing, it's easy. I don't do anything very difficult. I'm a 3-chord man. Hey, the other day, I did a 4-chord song, the first song.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that impressed me as much as it did everybody else.
So what jobs have you had throughout your life? You're 82.
Mm-hmm.
What jobs have you had throughout your life that supported your music habit?
Well, my first job was Collins Radio. I worked there for 8 years while I learned to play on the weekends with bands and stuff. And there was 2 guys out there. One was Dick Edwards, and the other was his last name was Don Miller. Maybe it was Dick Miller, one of the 2. They were both brothers. And they played guitar. And they were older dudes. I mean, I was only 16. They came over to my house, and both of them sat down and showed me how I had a Fender Esquire, which is like a Telecaster, only has 1 pickup. And they showed me how to play a C chord and a D chord. Well, I knew about those few chords, but they showed me how to play them up on the neck. My first lesson, my brother Leroy took me down to the Coliseum to see a band. It's called Roy Acuff. And his Country Something Boys, I can't remember. But he had a guy named Cowboy Copus with him, and Little Jimmy Dickens, and a guitar player named Thumbs Kenneth Carlisle. And my God, was he good. I learned a lot from watching that. Well, my brother brought me this songbook. It was a Roy Acuff songbook. And then he went into the service, and so he gave me his guitar. So here I am with the songbook and a guitar. Well, on the top of all the words, there's a little chart, and it shows you where to put your fingers. Well, the first song was On Top of Old Smoky. So I'm going, on top of Old Smoky. But that lasted a while. My next song was Under the Double Eagle. A lot of fun.
Tell me about being a lumberjack or whatever it was you did, tree cutter.
Well, I worked all over the U.S. with these little podunk bands. Let me tell you a story about that. Back in those days, if you were fat, you'd go to a fat doctor, and he'd give you some bennies. It was benzodrine sulfate and amphetamine sulfate, actually. And it perk you up pretty good, and it was legal. All you had to do was tell them you're fat. So us guys would drive 300 miles to play a gig somewhere. We'd change clothes, set up, and then we'd go look for a fat waitress, because we knew that she had some of those, and we could drink those, have those couple of Pepsis, and be on our way. And I learned to play. I started out playing guitar, then I mashed this finger, and I mean, just split it this way, split it right over the fingernail down that way. And if you can't probably get a close up of that, but you can still see the scar. So I'm learning to play like this. And Freddie Walk, who was a great guitar player, kidnapped me because he needed a 3rd guy to play this gig in Waterloo. So I get up there, and I end up doing it all like this, and singing my 8 songs, I suppose I knew by then. So they decided they wanted me to work for the full time, so they fired everybody had anything to do with me, grabbed me up. I woke up in Austin, Minnesota, and I discovered Jack Daniels makes a green label too. They looked green to me. Let me tell you, I woke up in Austin, Minnesota, and I was on the road. Then about the second night we were there, I heard Freddie Walk play guitar. I thought, holy cow, why am I attempting to play guitar? I mean, I was a better singer, I suppose. I wasn't a better singer, I knew more songs. So I said, well, why don't you teach me how to play bass? So he drags out this old white Fender bass that had the frets ripped off with a pair of pliers. And I'm going to sing and play that the first time I'm ever on stage with one. Well, somehow I got through the night. I'd put my finger, I'd see where the line was, put my finger there and just thump on that while I was trying to sing. Of course, half the time I was out of kilter there. You know, that's the way it goes. That's how you learn, I guess.
Tell me about Tommy Bruner.
Oh, one of my best friends, musical and personal. I've probably known him for, gosh, I can't even estimate it. But the first time I played with him, I knew I wanted to play with him a long time. And so I'm really blessed to be in several different projects with him and the jams, and it's wonderful.
Billy Bourbon here, living the dream with my buddy Tommy Bruner. He's also my bandmate in the Mandela Effect. Now, when I told him about the show, I told him, Tommy, I want you to just be yourself. Say or do anything you want to. And he said to me,
You don't want to tell me that.
here's why.
The landlord told me to do anything I wanted, so I installed this.
Hello. Billy Bourbon here, living the dream. This is my friend, a bass player, and an all-around cool guy, Randy Bird Burngoff.
Hello.
He's one of the members of the Mandela Effect, and I want you to tell me about promoters.
Promoters?
Tell me a story about promoters. You know promoters better than most.
Okay, one guy, promoter. We're supposed to get paid before we play, and this guy was $400 short in a club. He went downstairs. I made him pull out $400 in quarters. And I'm walking around with 300 pounds of quarters and going, here, boss, here's the money. And the boss says, what am I going to do with that? I said, I'll cash it later.
But you did get paid.
Oh, I got paid. Oh, I got paid before I played. I had the money in my hands. It's quarters, but I had the money.
He's the road manager. That's the bird.
Oh, yeah.
Hey there, Billy Bourbon here with Al Hendricks. It's his birthday today, 82 years old. Well, technically your birthday was Friday, right? Friday, right? But we're celebrating today.
So now I'm 82 plus 2.
82 plus 2. There you go. And he's going to get up and jam here for us. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Not only can he still have sex, he can still play guitar.
Man, I do both at the same time.
Okay, how y'all doing? It's Al's birthday right here. 82 years old right here today. Come on! He could be anywhere, but he's playing for you today.
Hello, Josephine. How do you do?
Thank you. Great guy.
I wanted to be here for Al's birthday, and I was maybe going to stop by after my gig, but the gig got canceled, so I got to be here from the beginning. So
Gig got canceled.
Happy birthday,
Living
Al.
the dream.
Yep, living the dream. You bet.
Billy Bourbon, living the dream, just heading out for the gig on a rainy day. Probably gonna have to load in the rain too. Like we say, living the dream. So Herm, how long you been playing music?
Since I was 8 years old, and I'm 62. That's when I learned how to play drums, when I was 8, and I'm 62 years old.
How many bands you been in, you think?
Too many? I can't remember. A lot.
Too many is a harsh number.
Too many. A lot of neighborhood garage bands at home. And then I really didn't get serious about playing with people till I came here. In New York I didn't, garage band mainly. Then I came here and I went to college and got my jazz chops together, played in a big band. But then on the side we had a rock and roll band to make extra money.
How many sets of drums do you own?
I have 9 right now.
9 sets of drums?
9 sets of drums plus snare drums, a whole bunch of snare drums.
Living the dream, baby.
Living the dream, baby. Couldn't couldn't buy them when I was a kid because my parents couldn't afford it. So as I got older, I just accumulated shit. I'm a hoarder.
So I played the old standard smoke, smoke, smoke that cigarette, and as I was walking out to break, the guy said, you know, that song made me smoke about 6 cigarettes. You ought to write one about quitting smoking. And I said, well, okay, I will. And I went back up on stage and turned on my recorder and picked up my guitar and made a song up about quitting smoking, most of which is in the song you're going to hear right now.
Quit smoking. Quit smoking. What the hell you smoking for? Quit smoking. Quit smoking. Smokers always gotta have one more. Smokers smoke when they're all alone, laying in bed or on the telephone. Smoke without a cigarette with smoke in his brand. It's the OP Brotherhood, and I love to smoke my hand. Quit smoking. Quit smoking. You can't afford the price you pay. Quit smoking. Quit smoking. You never liked too much anyway. Quit smoking. Quit smoking. What the hell you smoking for? Quit smoking. Quit smoking. Smokers always gotta have one more. Well, some like cigarettes and coffee, some like cigarettes and beer. I was a fan of cigarettes and whiskey for many years. Doc said, you know, cigarettes are gonna get you one of these days. You can keep your whiskey bill, but throw the cigarettes away. Quit smoking. Quit smoking. What the hell you smoking for? Quit smoking. Quit smoking.
Here's some more wisdom from Al Hendricks. Looking back, what is your advice to others about living the dream? People that always wanted to play and never have, or the people who, like you say, can't quit playing?
Have a backup plan. I'm living off of Vipers and Social Security, plus I'm playing just about all I want to. Now, if you can do that at 82, I'm happy for you.
What's the hardest choice you ever made in order to keep playing? And something like women, jobs, or having to move, or
I suppose having the choice of, it's either me or the guitar.
I get the feeling you've heard that more than once.
I get the feeling you're right. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I spent a lot of time in California playing with little podunk bands and had some damn good bands, but of which I was the weakest member. Well, I came back here and I was looking pretty cute and, dressed like a Californian. And I met Louis Carr. And so Louis hired me and Bernie Dixon as Louis and the High Lads. Now, all night we were black suits, white shirts, dressed to the max. And we did steps. Every single song we did steps, and our guitar necks were exactly the same. Everything, we were so perfect what we did. And we couldn't, neither one of us could sing every song that came out. So what we'd do is, Louis would play an instrumental and we'd sing vocal background behind him. And we, 4 years were like that. Meanwhile, then I went back to California. Well, then I came back and I was on unemployment from sneaking a job out there telling them I knew what I was doing. I was a production planner for ITT Canada. And I came back here, went back to work with Louis. And the unemployment agency told me that I'd have to take the next job that was offered to me. Well, it was the city of Cedar Rapids. So I went to work for them in 1969. I retired in 1989. I started out climbing dead elms, wearing a rope and a saddle, carrying a big chainsaw, climbed clear to the top of that son of a gun, and start cutting, and each limb you had cut, you had to lower down on a rope. Otherwise, you're going to bust a street light, you're going to bust a car windshield, something. And these weren't little limbs.
Like a lot of guys living the dream, I play any gig that comes along. Solo, duo, trio, with the Mandela effect, hired gun if I'm open. It's all about playing that next gig. That's what makes you a musician, the next gig. Billy Bourbon here, living the dream with my buddy Randy Bird Bergdorf. Tell him the story you're going to tell.
Okay. In '98, Rare Earth was a band that was the backup band for Mary Lee Rush, Mitch Ryder, Spencer Davis, Otis Day and the Night. From Otis Day, back in the movie days. Okay.
Otis loves us!
Otis, yes. So, we did a show in D.C. on a Saturday afternoon, and the promoter got a bus for us to go overnight with bunks to the next gig, which is in Huntsville, Alabama. We went there. At 2 in the morning, we're in the back of the bus. It was my drummer, JR, my keyboard player, Ricky, me, and in front of me and Ricky and JR were Eddie Mecca, which is Carmine from Laverne and Shirley, who was the MC of the whole show we were doing that whole time, and Otis Day was across from us, and we're all back there doing our thing, getting high, getting lit. 2 in the morning, bus is driving. Eddie's got a half gallon of Jack Daniels he stole from some gig that he actually got caught with. Somebody caught him with that. And we're back there drinking and partying, and all of a sudden up comes on a song that's Shout by Otis Day and the Night. Was on the radio, and we're all freaking dying and laughing and crazy high, and I'm going, we're getting high with Carmine and fucking Otis.
Carmine and Otis.
Oh my God, what a trip that was, man. It was. I mean, at 2 in the morning in the back bus getting high. That's one of the stories. Oh, many stories.
Just another night, huh?
Just another night.
Living the dream.
Living a dream.
First time I met Hendricks, he told me a limerick. And he just about dropped me to the floor with it. I didn't expect an 80-year-old man, conservative-looking fellow like him, to throw a dirty limerick at me. But he did, and I'm going to let you have some too. Here's Al. All right, here's my favorite part I had on my list. Give me some limericks.
Do they have to be clean?
No, dirty as hell.
Okay, there was a young man from Pizzazz who had two big balls made of brass. When he clanked them together, they played stormy weather and lightning shot out of his ass. Then there was a young lady from Pizzazz. Now she had a magnificent ass. Not pretty and pink as you might think. It was gray, had long ears, and ate grass. Sorry. There was a young lady from France who boarded a train in a trance. Well, the engineer fucked her and so did the conductor, but the brakeman went off in his pants. There was a young lady named Alice who used a dynamite stick for a phallus, and they found her vagina in North Carolina and parts of her anus in Dallas.
This show is for the guys who are out there playing. They never quit playing. It's also for the guys who thought they wanted to be in a band, but other life's concerns like jobs and kids got more important. But now maybe you're a little older and you got some more time on your hands and you want to be in a band. And it's also for younger guys who want to learn from the older guys' mistakes, basically. And by golly, we got a bunch of them. It ain't always easy living the dream.